Hello and welcome back to the Tiny Bond build series. Now in this video I'm going to be building a step that'll be the entranceway to the building itself, and it's going to incorporate the stormwater runoff pipe. There's a lot of brick in that step. It's quite complicated. And rightfully so, because the building itself has also become quite complicated the more time I spend on the design. Check out these renders, which will give you a rough idea of where we're heading. Now, as a quick recap, in the last video you will have seen me set these grate pegs in position and pour the concrete foundation for this step. That's had a bit of time now to go off, so I'm ready to lay the brick. I put a couple of bricks here at the correct radius from the centre line. The pole is marking the centre, and if I pull a string at around the height, if I pull a string to the centre line of the brick, I know that the brick is laid radially, and so is this one. But look how big the mortar gap is. Clearly I'm not going to be filling that with mortar, so I do need to cut these bricks on both sides so I get a nice tight 10 to 12 millimeter mortar gap in between each one. And so to do that, I've set the brick at the correct radius, and I pull the string line across and go to the corner and make a mark where the string hits here, and make a mark where the string hits here. And then if I join that through, run that line through from my mark to the front corner, that will show me exactly where I need to cut. Now if you watch my previous videos where I built the brick retaining wall, the very decorative one, you'll know that I did all of the brick cutting using a hand grinder. And that worked okay, but it was very, very slow, and more importantly, it created a lot of dust. So I mentioned in my last video where I built the brick skin over the retaining wall down here, I mentioned that I'd got access to a wet brick saw, and this is it. So big thanks to Yvonne, my friend and neighbour, who's lent me this machine. This is the first time setting it up and using it, and I've got a lot of cuts to make, not only for the step that we're building in today's video, but also the next episode, which I'm cladding the decorative brick skin over this fireplace here. So I'm going to get this set up, give it a go. I suspect I'm going to get very wet using this machine, but that's okay. Water I can cope with. It's far better than dust. And you can see it does a wonderful job giving a really clean cut, pretty quick, no dust, just water mist. So no gloves, I'm going to lose the coat and put a hat on because it's starting to get quite sunny today. And a quick check with the string line to make sure I'm happy with those before I go ahead and cut all of the others. That's an awful lot of waste, but 70 bricks later I've got them all cut and ready to get cemented in place. A lot of work, but it's going to look so much better for it. Now it's fair to say that this step is probably more complicated than it needs to be. But that's okay. The whole building is more complicated than it needs to be. So why make anything different here? Right, here are the things that are making this step slightly tricky. First off, the driveway. Take a look at this. Now, it's not easy to see on camera just how sloped a surface is, but this level is now level. You can see just how steep this driveway is, but the building behind me, the tiny barn, is obviously going to be built kind of level. No, it's going to be perfectly level. And I want the steps to be level as well. The second problem is that we've got quite a height difference here, but not very much width in order to make that transition. And the steps need to be easy to navigate. The next complication is rainwater. Now the rainwater is going to come off the roof, and this is the larger side of the roof. It's an asymmetrical design. There's going to be a lot of water coming off, and I need that to be captivated by this storm grid. And this has got to be in a good location so that the downspout can actually hit onto this. And that's where the center of this pole is positioned. So this is finished floor level. I want the top of this grid step to be 360 millimeters below finished floor level. So I'll measure that from the 100 millimeters to 460. That way I'm more accurate. That's the top of this stair. There's a header course and 3 courses of brick below. First course, second course, third course, brick on edge header course, 360 below finished floor level. I've done all my measurements, done all my double checking. I think I'm ready to get the mixer out and start laying some bricks. I'm using the string line for 2 purposes. Firstly, to ensure that they're all at the correct radius. There's a mark on the string line, and I'm lining that up with the face or iris edge of the brick, and that makes sure that my circle is indeed a circle. And secondly, I'm making sure that the brick is centered and radial towards the center of this circle. Okay, I'm going to let that mix for about 9 minutes, and then it'll be a perfect creamy mix, ready to lay the next course. And thanks to Wolfram for the comment on using the rubber mallet to get the rest of the mortar out of the back of the drum. Genius! This first course is completely underground, so I'm not laying it to a string line. I'm just going to follow the profile, a slightly curved profile of the concrete driveway, ensuring that the tops are level, and that's all that matters at this stage. As this brickwork comes out of the ground, then it becomes important that it follows the profile that I want. But this first course really doesn't matter too much. I'm using a 3/4 bat here, and that's going to ease the transition from the relatively straight part of the step into the tight radius curve. It's also going to ensure that my bonding works on the next course up. And then once that third course is in place, I can give it an hour or so to firm up, and then use a pointing bar to rake out the joints and a brush to brush them smooth. I managed to get all this pipework glued together just before a large storm hit, so that was a couple of days ago, which means this brickwork has had plenty of time to firm up. And that's good, because I'm going to be filling all of this void in with concrete and then putting the top course of brick on for this bottom step. And by wrapping the pipework in this foam, it means if there's any thermal expansion or differential in thermal expansion between the plastic and the concrete, and there will be, there's less likelihood of causing cracks or breakages. And that doesn't want to sit squarely, obviously, so I'm not going to bother siliconing that in place just yet. I'm going to get some concrete into the bottom of the hole so that this grid is fully supported. Then I can seal this on the outside and on the inside, and then finish up filling this void with the rest of the concrete. Looking for about 332, 332, just shy, so that'll do. Parallel to the building. Not that you'll notice, because I'm going to fill this with herringbone pattern. That'll really throw your eyes off any inaccuracy. I'm ready to put the top course of brick on this bottom step, and it's going to be a header course, brick on edge, and as you can see here, it also needs to be pie cut, rather like the courses below. Here's a set that I've cut, and you can see just how much neater they're going to look. So I've got those cut already, but I do have a little bit more cutting to do with these headers that run along here. This pipe is protruding through the concrete a little bit, so I just need to hold this approximately level. Got it flush at the front here. I'm going to take a mark there. I can see it's about 25 to 30 millimeters too high, so I'm going to take about 25 to 30 off the back end of that brick. I'll do a bunch of these to run me through to here, and the rest won't need cutting. That's the straight part of the step done with the header course, and now I can install those pie cut bricks that I showed you earlier. and then again giving that a little bit of time to firm up and using the pointing bar to compact, smooth and rake out the joints before brushing them clean. Well, now I've finished the header course around that curved area, I've found that I've got a couple of these pie cut bricks left over. So I've laid them here to see whether or not they'll work for the corner of this second step. Originally, I'd got a square corner, well, slightly rounded, but I don't know, does this look any better or is this over the top? Let me know what you think. I'm going to ponder on that. Right now, I need to get on and cut all of the herringbone brick for the centre of that circle. Now I've spent a couple of hours marking out and cutting each brick one at a time and placing them where they're going to go, and then I'll need to lift them out in order to get the mortar in. And I've almost finished. However, I don't think this is the right way to do it. I don't think it's the best way to do it. It works, sure, but it takes too long. I think it would have been far better had I got a big piece of plywood, dropped it on top here, marked out the circle, the perimeter of the pattern, marked out the positioning of that grid, and then laid my brick in a herringbone pattern over the top. And that way I could have easily and quickly marked all the bricks at once. That would have saved me quite a lot of work. And the other benefit, of course, those bricks would then be on a piece of plywood. I could remove them one at a time in order to place in the right position in the bed of mortar. The benefit of hindsight. So for all of you who've been screaming at the screen, saying, why are you doing it that way? Well, now you know. I didn't think about it enough. Planning. Or lack of. Now to fit this infill, I've chosen to put mortar into the bottom of the hole, not to butter the sides of the brick, but instead lay the brick into that mortar, working it down to the right height and getting it perfect with a straight edge, or in this case the level. Now the benefit here is that that mortar that's underneath the brick can ooze up into the join. It's got somewhere to go. There's a gap for it. If I'd buttered the sides of the brick, then it would just displace the bricks around it, causing all manner of problems. And then once they're all in place, I can come back with a trowel of mortar and point up all of the joins. So what did you decide? Curved corner or square? As you can see, I've made the decision to use those leftover pie cut bricks. I've had to cut 3 more to finish off, and I'm just loosely laying them out to work out exactly where the curve will be, where the step is going to end. And maybe you can see here that all the bricks are really quite different lengths. So I'm going to be cutting these back so that they're all of a uniform size, but also to give me space for 2 runs of brick that'll finalize this step tread. I'll number all of these bricks, and that way I make sure they go into the correct place after I've cut them all to length. Now this top step needs to be 40mm away from the timber floor structure, and that's to give space for the cladding system which I'm going to be installing after I've built the building. And it just so happens that my small level is 40mm in width, so I'm using it as a spacer to make sure that that gap is even all the way along. And because this step is set forwards by that 40mm, it does offset it from the bottom step. So I'm just putting a haunch of mortar down in the back there, and that way it'll just aid any moisture to run off. And here's the last of the infill brickwork. Again, this does not matter in terms of being straight, it just needs to be level. The size of the mortar gaps also not that important. It's just a fill-in, so the header course, the top of the step, the tread, is going to have a flat surface to support it. And then to finish off the front of this tread, you can see over on the left hand side I've already installed 1 brick to the right height, and that way I can use my level to make sure the rest of the bricks are aligned. Now I can't really use a string line here, although this step looks straight, it has got a very slight curve in it. And because of that, each of these header bricks are actually slightly different lengths. Well, the last couple of bricks going into this tread, and then all I need to do is point it up and clean the joints. And I'm left with a set of steps that really do add a lot of interest to the entrance to this tiny barn building and really tidy up and neaten that transition between the driveway and the structure. Well, it may have seemed a little bit odd building steps up to a building that I haven't even made yet, but there was a little bit of method to my madness. I wanted to get rid of the remaining bricks that I got around the place. You can still see some more behind me. That's the next stage of the project. But also, I needed to continue with the build while I wait for the mill to put together my timber order so I can actually start the structure. Now that timber is due to be here in around about a week's time. So I've got a week to start the next phase of the project, which is finishing off that chimney breast, that fireplace behind me. So until then, thanks so much for watching. Bye.